channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Saturday morning at 19 minutes past the hour of 11 a.m. here in Kampala, Uganda. Should be about 19 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. Over there in the UK as you guys prepare for the early kickoff that will be between Leeds United and Tottenham Hotspurs in the English Premier League. Hi LFC, good to have you back. Good morning to you. I hope you're doing well. I hope everything is okay with you. Did you enjoy that game between Bournemouth and Fulham? Bournemouth are cruising to a 3-1 victory at the expense of Fulham. Anton Semenyo having a very, very brilliant performance, as he's almost had literally all season. I think he's the only player with double figures in terms of goals and assists combined so far in this season. So yeah, we are looking really, really interesting from that path. Anyways, we will be reviewing that bit of action and a little more. Then we will also be looking at what's to come over the weekend. So much is being said about Liverpool, their expectations of Chelsea and Manchester United. Ange Postecoglou, yesterday Sky Sports reporting that Evangelos Marinakis won't hesitate to show him the exit. Should the situation necessitate that, should it be deemed that he has failed to live up to the expectations. In that sense, it's something that I did mention that for a guy that oversaw his team last season, qualify for the UEFA Conference League before it was elevated to the UEFA Europa League, he won't hesitate to pull out the slasher, to cut ties with Ange Postecoglou if he does fail to, deliver the results that I expected of him, in that kind of sense. So, I mean, we're talking about a team that almost got to UEFA Champions League football before they sort of crumbled away at the tail end of the season. Not that we did have high expectations of them, because in any case, they had already beaten what the expectations had been for them going into the season. Having finished 17th in the previous campaign, that was, I think, 2023-2024, coming into the 2024-2025 campaign, I think it's safe to say that it was all going to be all about survival for Nottingham Forest, and he did more than that. But at the end of the day, it was internal disruptions or disagreements or a view in perception of things, how they're supposed to go down, that led to the parting of ways, a decision I, for one, did not think was the right decision for Evangelos Marinakis to do. But I mean, who am I to say he made the wrong decision when he is the businessman, the rich man that gets to make all the decisions, when he's the investor, in that sort of sense, if you want to look at it in that angle. But anyways, okay, let's start off with the game that was on yesterday between Bournemouth and Fulham before we revert back to the situation at Nottingham Forest that we should be equally discussing and see. But yeah, Anton Semenyo was one of those players that many teams wanted to sign during the course of the summer. Fortunately, he went on to sign a new contract with Bournemouth. I think it's a 5-year contract. I stand to be corrected, but I think it's a 5-year contract that he did renew. And I mean, about 2.5 years ago, or almost 3, when they signed him from Bristol City for a mere 13 million pounds, he was being reported to be quoted in the region of 70 million pounds for any team that wanted to sign him. I, for one, did not agree that he is worth 70 million pounds, not in my opinion. But the market is in that sort of shape or sense that in a way it's exaggerated, So far, okay, he has not yet made double figures. He's still at 6 goals, 3 assists in this campaign. But again, that's a very, very good, performance. He only 25 years of age, well within his prime. and he has a lot going for him. He has a lot going for him. He does represent the Ghanaian national team or the Ghana national team, despite being born in London. So yeah, and I think yes, this was the got him in 2023. Yes, that's when he joined AFC Bournemouth, and he was a little of an unknown figure to say the least. He had his launch spells at Bath City, Newport, and Sunderland. You know, it's not like he was one of the most exciting talents that teams would look at and say he's worth the investment. And yet Bournemouth took that gamble, and it's really paid off. He did sign a new contract last summer, but yesterday Bournemouth once again were very dominant in their performance. When you look at the statistics, a 54% ball possession. My personal prediction had been a 2-1 victory for AFC Bournemouth, but they made it better and won by 3-1. A result that took them second on the Premier League log, leapfrogging Arsenal to go behind Liverpool, who are at 15 points, and now Bournemouth have 14 points as the other teams went to play for match day 7. 6 shots on target compared to Fulham's 4. And we spoke about Fulham's issues with the injuries they have, especially with their forward, with their attackers, and that's why we saw Ante Robinson Harry Wilson being played in that striking role because they were without Rodrigo Muniz, they were without Raul Jimenez, who are all out through injury. But yeah, it did not come easy. They had to grind it out. In any case, they had to come from a goal down, having conceded in the 70th minute, thanks to a goal by Ryan Sessegnon, with Samuel Chukwueze providing the assist to give the visitors the lead. However, they couldn't hold on to that because in the 70th minute, Antoine Semenyo scored to restore parity with with Adrian Trafford providing the assist to make it 1-1. And then Justin Kluivert scored a stunning goal thanks to Antoine Semenyo's assist there to make it 2-1. That was in the 84th minute. And then almost 10 minutes later, about 12 minutes later, in the 6th minute of added time, then Ben Doak provided the assist as Antoine Semenyo was at it again to score, making it 3-1. All 3 points that they took, very important points on the Premier League log, because it takes them second on the Premier League log. Like I said, 4 games won, 2 draws, and 1 loss. I mean, if that isn't a stellar performance, I do not know what is. I, for one, am really surprised, especially given the significance of players that they lost during the course of the summer. Players like Dean Howson, players like Ilya Zabanyi, Milos Kakis, of course, Kepa Arrizabalaga was there on loan as their #1 goalkeeper. I've been really surprised with how good Bournemouth have looked, even with the departure of those players, and that speaks to the quality of the manager that they do have in Andoni Iraola. Again, perhaps it's no surprise that teams from the Saudi Pro League were really interested in taking him. He was being linked with a potential move to Al Hilal and things like that. And then now there's a constant speculation. It's not going to go away until results take a different turn for Manchester United. He is being linked with a potential move to Manchester United should they decide to part ways with Ruben Amorim. I think we will get time next week or perhaps during the course of the weekend to speak about Manchester United in particular. I have a feeling that there's a bit of a fear to sort of act on Ruben Amorim. I have this feeling that, you know how you talk to somebody to guide you about something and they have reservations. Hello, Pedri, how are you doing? Good morning. How is your morning in Spain? You know how somebody tells you, you're making that decision, but I'm not too sure about it. And I think it could cost you. I predict Arsenal 3-0 against West Ham. Wow, bold prediction. Mine was a 3-1 victory. But if there's any food for thought that we all to share, is that Arsenal have not scored a goal against West Ham in their last 2 games at the Emirates Stadium. They've lost both games at 2-0 and 1-0 respectively in the last 2 seasons. So that's a food for thought for us to think about. But yeah, so when it comes to Manchester United and Ruben Amorim, you get the feeling that the big bosses are reluctant to act because there's a certain feeling that they may be having the need to be right about their own choice. Because when you talk about Ruben Amorim, this was their hiring. So, and with all the criticism that came of Manchester United of how wrong they had gotten previous decisions when it came to managers, David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Erik ten Hag, of course, in between there, the interims of Ralph Rangnick, and then Ole Gunnar Solskjaer also. I mean, does that need to get things right? Shumail, hi, how are you doing, Shumail? I hope you're okay. What's your prediction for Chelsea-Liverpool? Chelsea-Liverpool, I went for a 1-1 draw in my predictions for those of you that were following the conversation yesterday, but it's all. I went for a 1-1 draw. I do not know. I feel Chelsea are in a very, very bad place. So, anyways, guys. So about Manchester United, that's my feeling about them. That Sir Jim Ratcliffe, they really, really think they need to get this right. They need Ruben Amorim to work out because they want to be vindicated by the decision that they made to hire Ruben Amorim. But that notwithstanding, I have a feeling that by the turn around of the November international break, after that international break, if results in between the immediate aftermath of the October international break and the November international break, if results do not go Ruben Amorim's way, he will be in bad books. Because sometimes, no matter how much you want it to work out, it just doesn't work out. Compare it to a relationship with that beautiful girl that you may be having. You like them, they're beautiful, they're smart, but there's that sort of a issue. Maybe their hygiene is not good, or maybe they're disorganized, or it could be something, anything. It could be anything that eventually, you have to part ways with them. But it is what it is. That's a comparison that I want to give you. Guys, I want us to discuss the issue of Nottingham Forest. But I can see Shumail is saying Yamal got injured. Yes, his groin issue is continuing. I think so. He's going to be out of the Spanish squad for the international break, and he will be out of Barcelona's game this weekend. I think Barcelona are going to be up against Sevilla. You say they should hire me. They should hire me. I concede 0 goals and start counterattacks. Counterattacks. My formation is 7-2-1. Jesus Christ! What kind of formation is that? 7-2-1. That basically means that that's not even parking the bus. That is parking the train. Really, if you're going to play with 7 defenders, that's too much congestion. In that back line. Basically, you're building the Berlin Wall, in a sense. And then that means you concede the midfield. You have a lone striker who is supposed to stand there and wait for that long ball to come through. Okay, let's see. Anyways, guys, I want us to talk about Nottingham Forest because it's a team that we did talk about this sometime this week. Particularly, I think it was on Thursday night as they lost to Midtjylland by 3-2, and we were speaking about Ange Postecoglou because he's winless in all the games he's managed Nottingham Forest through. So far, it's been 6 games, and they've only managed 2 draws. Those draws coming against Royal Betis in the UEFA Europa League and against Burnley in the Premier League. But they lost to Arsenal by 3-0, lost to Swansea in the EFL Cup by 3-2. Then they lost to Sunderland last weekend by 1-0. Then lost to Midtjylland by 3-2. So, and yet when you look at the next round of games for them until possibly November. You really struggle to see, and yes, until the end of November, you really struggle to envision what game they are going to win. Because this weekend they will be up against Newcastle tomorrow. That's at St James's Park. It's an away game, so it's a difficult game. Then after that, after the international break, they will return to play Chelsea at home. Then after Chelsea, they will play FC Porto in the UEFA Europa League. Then they will be up against FC Bournemouth. We've just seen how Bournemouth are really good. Then after that, they will be up against Manchester United at home. Maybe Manchester United is a game that they get to win, but who knows? Maybe by then Manchester United have sort of picked their mojo. Then after Manchester United, they will be up against Sturm Graz, another difficult game in the UEFA Europa League. Then Nottingham Forest will take on Leeds after that, and then Liverpool because after the weekend of 9th November, we will go into the November international break, and then action will return on the 22nd. So then when they return, they will be away to Liverpool. Another very difficult game. Last season, they managed to win that game by goal to nil. That goal scored by Callum Hudson-Odoi. But like I said, it's no longer Nuno Espirito Santo in charge. Then after that, they will be up against Malamo in the UEFA Europa League, and then take on Brighton on the 30th of November. So when you look at that run of fixtures, you struggle to zero down what game is going to be simpler for Nottingham Forest, because even us alluding to them beating up against Manchester United is because Manchester United have been so poor on the road, you know. So that's why, you know. Anyways, so first of all, like I was saying, guys, I for one, I believe that Nottingham Forest made the wrong decision in parting ways with Nuno Espirito Santo. Yes, he had come out publicly and criticized. He had come out publicly and spoken about his relationship with his boss, Evangelos Marinakis, arguing that the relationship was no longer the same because in between Evangelos Marinakis and Nuno Espirito Santo had come in a middleman in Edu Gaspar Dawood, who is the head of football for all the clubs that are under the stewardship of Evangelos Marinakis. That's Nottingham Forest, Olympiacos, and I think Braga over in Portugal. So, and he said that the distance between them was growing. It was widely reported that the relationship between Nuno Santo and Edu Gaspar Dawood was not a good relationship. That was well reported upon. So you look at things and you assess them and think to yourself, oh wow, that's not good. And I remember talking about that situation when the Athletic put out that article about the rift between Nuno Espirito Santo and Edu Gaspar Dawood. And I said, if I was Evangelos Marinakis, if it boiled down to parting ways with one of the two, for me, it was going to be Edu Gaspar Dawood. Or maybe I would shove him to go run things at Olympiacos and Braga and first stay out of issues with Nottingham Forest for a moment. Now, him being the head of global football there meant that he's going to play this role of sporting director, technical director, whichever way you want to define it. So in other words, he was charged with transfers. They disagreed on some of the transfers they made. Edu Gaspar Dawood thought they needed a broad squad, given what the responsibilities they were going to have in the UEFA Europa League, as well as trying to stay competitive in the domestic league, that's the Premier League, and also compete on all fronts of other cup competitions like the EFL Cup, the FA Cup. Now, that was his school of thought. On the other hand, Nuno Espirito Santo apparently was of the argument that he did not want to have an exaggerated squad where he needs to, where he's going to end up with unhappy players because he cannot accommodate them playing time. He wanted, a bit of a narrow squad that he can manage. Yes, injuries can come in, but to play with a bit of a smaller squad. So there were disagreements there. And then it also apparently boiled down to the individual players that they were signing. Apparently players like Omari Hudson, he wasn't in for him as much, and things like that. While they did well on paper in the transfer window, bringing in players like Danny Ndoye, Omari Hudson, James McAtee from Manchester City, they brought in Douglas Luiz on loan from Juventus. I think there's a couple of Brazilians they brought in. You know, on paper they did well, but results have not been that. So because Nuno Espirito Santo was performing well as a manager, getting the results, but that 3-0 defeat against West Ham United, when you look at their start to the season, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all because they kickstarted the season with the 3-1 victory against Brentford. They went to Crystal Palace and shared the Spurs in a 1-1 draw, then lost to West Ham United by 3-0 before losing by a similar score against Arsenal, which was Ange Postecoglou's first game. So I felt, one, it was a rush decision. Disagreements do happen in modern day work environments. In the history of working environments. And I think Evangelos Marinakis only had to get on the phone, not even on the phone, to someone, his manager, for a dinner, and they talk things out, and he voices his frustrations, and he himself listens or gives his opinion, and they see how they move forward together. Because I think he was bringing in the results. In any case, I do not think there would be there would be 6 games without a victory if it was still him in charge. But anyways, it is what it is. They made their decision. They made their bet. Let them lay it. So I thought it was a very unpopular decision. I thought it was the wrong decision. Yes, there's so many things that they disagreed about. For example, it was also reported that Evangelos Marinakis wasn't too pleased with the style of football that they played. Now, that's valid, but also you're not Nottingham Forest, you're not Barcelona, you're not Real Madrid, you're not Arsenal, you're not Manchester United, you're not Chelsea, you're not Bayern Munich, you're not Inter Milan, you're not AC Milan, you're not Juventus. You don't get to have your pick of the laser. I mean, for teams like Nottingham Forest, it's the results at the end of the day that should matter beyond the style of football. And the reason as to why I say that is you need to build yourself a certain consistency of guaranteeing that you stay within the top flight for you to start having that luxury. I'll give you an example. Go back to the season of 2023-2024. You remember Burnley when they came up with Vincent Kompany. They played good football, always dominant of the ball, expansive football, but they struggled, to defend because of the system with which they played, and it cost them. It cost them points because they created chances. They weren't scoring as much. They conceded plenty. They were conceding plenty of goals, and eventually they got relegated. Vincent Kompany moved on. He's now at Bayern Munich. If they do win this weekend against Eintracht Frankfurt, I think he will be the first manager in Europe to win 10 games, to win all 10 games of the starting campaign in a row. So they will get to have that. So he's been brilliant. Wow, he guided, Bayern Munich to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League last season. They got knocked out at the quarterfinals at the hands of Inter Milan, who ended up in the finals. So you can't really blame him that much. They did well domestically. They won the league. And things like that. So when you're Nottingham Forest, I think the results should supersede whatever preference of a style of play that you may have. You look at teams like Burnley today, who are under the charges of Scott Parker. If you ask Sunderland, if you ask Burnley, if you ask Leeds United, is it going to be the style of play, or would they rather stay in the top flight? I think they would choose the latter, So for Nottingham Forest, while that is a valid reason to have, I do not think it was the right time to have that kind of reason. But anyways, like I said, they made the bet, let them lay. Ange Postecoglou has struggled. No win yet. And I certainly do not believe that Newcastle, after that loss to Arsenal last weekend, and then subsequently going on to have a win in the UEFA Champions League by 4-0. They were beating up against, I'm forgetting the team that they were beating up against. I need to have my mind refreshed on the opponent that they were playing in the UEFA Champions League. If somebody has them on their quick fingertips, please remind us who Newcastle did beat I think that was on Wednesday. Should have been on Wednesday. Oh, Jesus Christ, what did I do? Yes, Union sent Giloisi, who they beat up against by 4 goals to nil. After that kind of result, I do not think that they go to return home and then suddenly lose to a poor Nottingham Forest. Now, again, when they got in Ange Postecoglou, my view was that it couldn't be a much bigger a contrast between the two managers. You had the very conservative manager in Nuno Espirito Santo, who likes to, defend solidly, catch teams with the counter, worked well for him last season, and then you bring in Ange Postecoglou, who is the total opposite of that. He likes to play expansive football, which tends to create gaps, within his teams that are exploited and they concede. I mean, he's a manager who lost 22 Premier League games last season at Tottenham, while he guided them to the triumph of the UEFA Europa League. That, in a way, ended up masking that poor record of 22 losses. I mean, in any other given season, that's relegation form. You lose 22 Premier League games, you're relegated. And Tottenham survived by a whisker because they finished 17th on the Premier League club. So I do not think it was the right decision to make. Anyways, let's leave the issues of Nottingham Forest at that. Like I said, the Premier League action does get underway. Today, it continues for match day 7. Leeds United at 2:30 p.m. up against Tottenham Hotspur. Arsenal up against West Ham United. Manchester United up against Sunderland. Both games kicking off at 5 p.m. East African time, and then later on, Chelsea will be up against Liverpool. Then tomorrow, 4 games will kick off at 4 p.m. That's Aston Villa, Burnley, Everton, Crystal Palace, and Newcastle United will be up against Nottingham Forest. Wolverhampton Wanderers will take on Brighton and Hove Albion, while Brentford will be up against Manchester City in the late kickoff at 6:30 p.m. On Super Sunday. So, all that, I did give my predictions yesterday. For those of you that were part of last night's broadcast, in case you missed them, do go check out that broadcast from last night, and you will get what all my predictions were. Then also, maybe might I say this? You look at okay. We did a video about Liverpool, whether Liverpool is a team in crisis, and that video is on the channel. Go to the video section. You will be able to see that video. Go to the channel. Go under videos. You will be able to see that video. Are Liverpool a team in crisis? Are Liverpool a team in crisis? You should be able to see that video. It's about 21 minutes. Go watch it and give me your thoughts, and leave me a comment down in the comment section. I see it has about 368 views. I thank you to all those that have watched it. Thank you to all our new community members. I see we have some new subscribers. We are at 1,667. Remember, the objective is to get to 2,000 subscribers. That remains the objective. We were unable to achieve it in the previous 2 months, but yeah, it doesn't mean that we will give up on it. Anyways, so yeah, that will come. That will come as well. So in terms of predictions, I think I've given mine for Chelsea. Liverpool, I went for a 1-1 draw. Chelsea have so many injuries. They have a suspension for Trevor Chalobah, so that is going to cost them. I think missing Cole Palmer is a key issue for Chelsea. He's very, very integral to how they play and how what they play in terms of inspiring their results and things like that. And things like that is very, very important in that sense. Then also, you look at Chelsea's injury list. The likes of Liam Delap, the likes of Dario Isugo, Cole Palmer, Tosin Aderabio, Wesley Fofana. Maybe this one could return because he had a concussion. Andre Santos had a knock, so maybe he could return. But Levi Colwill, that doesn't well. So we could see a back to a defensive pivot of Joshua Achepong and Bernard Badiashile. I mean, for a guy that has not been fielded, that's a big ask to field him against Liverpool. Richard James at right back and Marco Correa. For me, I would sort of say maybe play Richard James at centre back. He has the fight for it. He's not well suited for it, but he has the grit for it. And then play a conservative midfield of Moises Caicedo, Romeo Lavia, alongside Enzo Fernandez, and then you have your William Estavao, João Pedro, and Pedro Neto to start in that sense. Liverpool, I mean, they're not a team in crisis, not in my opinion, are losing only 2 games in a total of 9 games this season. Isn't really alarming, because in the league they've won 5 out of 6. In the UEFA Champions League they won 1 out of 2. In the EFL Cup they won against Southampton. So yeah, while the results have sort of masked their underlying problems, I do not think they're a team in crisis. And like I said, if I'm Arne Slot, I go with my well-known midfield trio of McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Ryan Gravenberch. I do not try to put Szoboszlai right back and then play Jeremy Frimpong high up as the sort of right winger. I don't do that. I go for Cody Gakpo, Mo Salah, and Hugo Ekitike to lead the lines. That means Florian Wirtz is sacrificed. Centre back, I'll go with Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk to play alongside Milos Kerkez and Jeremy Frimpong, with Georgi Mamadashvili in goal, given the injury to Alson Ramsey-Specker. The reason that's why I dropped Ibrahim Konate, because he's had 2 poor games, maybe to give him a rest, to take off that bit of pressure off him. Sometimes it helps players psychologically to ease them out of that pressure with going into the international break. So, but bearing in mind that Liverpool tend to struggle winning away from winning at Stamford Bridge, we sort of that's why I went for a 1-1 draw for that particular fixture. But Liverpool need to bounce back from those 2 defeats and get themselves a point or 2 or all 3 points. Are they capable of going to Stamford Bridge and get all 3 points? They are very, very capable of that. But even though I do not envision it happening, So that's the situation on that. In terms of Manchester United, I went for, I think I predicted another draw, a 1-1 draw for that game as well. I don't know, 1 too many it was, because even Leeds Tottenham, I said it could be a draw, although if I kept a feeling that even though early kickoffs can be difficult, Tottenham could win this one. Tottenham will win this one. And this weekend is so significant that it's going to have status going into the international break for it. Because if Tottenham Hotspur, by the way, win today, if they win, it takes them to 14 points in second place, or in second place behind Liverpool. If Arsenal win, they could be top of the Premier League before Liverpool plays. So there's a lot going for it. If Manchester City win their game tomorrow, that's 13 points. It could take them as high as that if Arsenal do not win, if Crystal Palace do not win, if Tottenham Hotspur do not win. So for Manchester United, I mean, we've spoken about Manchester United at great length. I think the manager sort of feels the pressure. He may not be under pressure from his bosses, but he suddenly feels the pressure or the weight of managing a team like Manchester United, the expectations that lay upon its shoulders from the fans. It's traditionally known as a winning team, but they haven't been that in a good amount of time when it comes to major trophies. Yes, they've won trophies, but they're the kinds of trophies you consider to be second-tier trophies. If I were to grade trophies, I'd say Premier League, Champions League, that's top tier. Second tier, that's where you have the UEFA Europa League, the FA Cup. Third tier, that's where you have the Carabao Cup, you have the Community Shield, you have the UEFA Conference League. that really, in that sense, if you're a Premier League team. So that's how I would classify things. In any case, the Charity Shield is a tier 4, kind of accolade. So, but we know that United have struggled. Sunderland have had a good start to their campaign. You see, the unfortunate bit about Manchester United in this season or in recent times is that I even, for one, struggle to sit here and I tell you that when Manchester United come in action at 5 p.m. today, they're going to do these things right. They're going to run Sunderland ragged. Bruno Fernandes is going to be stringing those passes. Benjamin Sesko will be hard to defend against. Brani Bomo will be, cutting and slicing on the right wing. Matthias Cunha on the left wing, and as the two number 10s. I struggle to give you that because they've not shown it. Newcastle have had their struggles, but when you look at them, how they operate their width, there's always that constant threat from Anthony Elanga. We saw that in the UEFA Champions League game. Harvey Barnes, when he came off the bench, there's always that. Anthony Gordon, Nick Woltmada with that aerial threat. But Manchester United, you struggle to see where their threat is going to come from until it actually comes. You have to wait for it to actually come for you to see it. So, anyways, that's it. But do not forget, plenty of action coming our way this weekend. That's the 4th of October. So that's everything with the Premier League. In the Spanish La Liga, Real Madrid will be in action at 10 p.m. against Villarreal. Athletic Bilbao will be up against Mallorca at 7:30 p.m. While in the early kickoff, Oviedo up against Levante at 3 p.m. Girona take on Valencia at 5:15 p.m. That's in the Spanish La Liga. Like I said, in the German Bundesliga, Bayern Munich at 7:30 p.m. will be up against Eintracht Frankfurt. While in the early kickoffs, that will come at 4:30 p.m. Augsburg will be up against Wolfsburg. Bayer Leverkusen up against Union Berlin. Borussia Dortmund will be up against RB Leipzig. Werder Bremen will be against St. Pauli. While in the Italian Serie A, you have Lazio up against Torino, Parma against Lecce, Inter against Cremonese, Atlanta against Como. French League 1, Metis will be up against Olympique Marseille, Brest against Nantes, while Auxerre will be up against RC Lens. That's for the Saturday action. And then on Super Sunday, of course, you do expect more action in the Spanish La Liga, including Deportivo Aves up against Elche, Sevilla up against Barcelona at 5:15 p.m. Espanyol will be up against Real Betis, Sociedad will be up against Vallecano, while Celta Vigo will take on Atletico de Madrid. In the German Bundesliga, VfB Stuttgart will be up against Heidenheim, Hamburg SV will be up against Mainz, Borussia Mönchengladbach will be up against Freiburg, while in the Italian Serie A, Udinese will be up against Cagliari, Bologna will be up against Pisa, Fiorentina up against AC Roma, and Napoli will take on Genoa, while Juventus will be up against AC Milan. I hope I do not forget that fixture. It's one that I really want to watch between Juventus and AC Milan. In the French League 1 on Super Sunday, we will have Lyon up against Toulouse, AC Monaco up against Nice, Le Havre against Stade Rennes, while Strasbourg will be up against Angers, and then Lille will be up against Paris Saint-Germain. So two big games are coming there on Super Sunday in the Italian Serie A and the French League 1. Thank you so much, LFC Pedri Shumail, for being part of today's broadcast. It's 2 minutes to midday, and I have a lot of errands to run, but I hope I can, get done with them on time. I don't know if I'll get done with them on time, but we'll see. Really. Anyways, allow me wish you a wonderful weekend. Is there anything we've left out that we've not touched on in terms of news? But that Arsenal game, Arsenal versus West Ham, like I told you guys, Arsenal have not beaten up against West Ham in their last two visits in West Ham's last two visits to the Emirates Stadium. So be mindful of that. However, I think this new Arsenal will find the grit to go ahead and win. I gave my prediction yesterday, my analysis for that game. Go back to yesterday, last night's broadcast, and check out that video. You'll see all the analysis because we've not digested that game in this one. Have a blessed weekend, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye for now.